commence primary ignition.
Hi, I'm Houston, and welcome to the Spirit of Cinema. With the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens, many fans who had expected a revolutionary, life-changing, completely new movie were disappointed by the fact that the plot of the film mirrored that of Star Wars A New Hope so heavily. We've all probably heard the talk about it. Starkiller Base is the Death Star, Rey is Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo is Obi-Wan Kenobi. The plot of The Force Awakens, spare a few additions and cuts, is almost identical to that of A New Hope, but with a few different characters and locations. Lots of people think this is a bad thing, and it reflects how unoriginal Hollywood is these days, but I think it may be a little different than that. For the sake of this video, let's call Star Wars The Force Awakens a remake. No, technically it's not, but as stated, it's very derivative of A New Hope, and that's very intentional on J.J. Abrams' part. Alright, we'll come back to Star Wars later, but for now I want to talk about another remake, 2015's Cinderella. The thing about the 2015 Cinderella remake is that it's almost the exact same movie as the original animated feature from 1950. It brings very little new to the table, and the plot stays exactly identical. You would think Cinderella would have been mocked for its unoriginality, its failure to bring anything new to the table, and its retread of the same old story. But for the most part, it wasn't. In fact, Cinderella received much higher critical acclaim and audience love than its previous counterpart, Maleficent, which did try to bring something new to the table. But why is that? Well, it's simple. Take a look at this music video of We Built This City on Rock and Roll.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
This music video is the cheesiest thing I've ever seen in my life, no doubt about it. But the song is still great. People still listen and love it to this day. And it's the same with the story of Cinderella. See, here's the thing. People in the 80s liked this music video. It was even considered good at the time. I know, it's hard to believe. But now that society has continued to evolve, people think differently. We now have, better green screen technologies. We can understand why the video is so bad, and we can understand why people liked it at the time, but we can't say it's great by our higher standards anymore. That's why people say it's great for the time, not for now. And so it goes with film. The Cinderella movie is very much a product of the 1950s. From the way the characters speak, to the slow rhythm of the film, to the romanticism of the love story, the movie doesn't exactly hold up today. We can understand what made it good for the time, but comparatively, it's nowhere near as great as some of the other films that come out these days. That said, that story, the characters, and the plot all still hold up, and that's why a remake works. But the thing about remakes is that it's supposed to improve on the original and update it for a new time. Let's talk about that for a second. See, you can't just make a carbon copy of the original with new effects and actors. That would contradict the reason for making a remake and updating the story for a new generation. Audiences of today demand more of Hollywood than they did in the 50s. That's why for the Cinderella movie in 2015, we get a lot more depth. We see Ella's childhood play out. We learn more about the prince and who he is and how they meet each other. And we hear more of the wicked stepmother's backstory as well. If we hadn't heard these things, I think audiences would have been disappointed. Nowadays, in 2015, they've come to expect answers for every question they might have. Although, the answers don't always satisfy.
Midichlorians are a microscopic life form that resides within all living cells.
So what is all this to say about The Force Awakens? Well, as I said before, let's just call The Force Awakens a remake. Compare A New Hope with Cinderella from the 50s and Force Awakens with Cinderella from 2015, and you have a very similar situation. A New Hope was a fantastic film in 1977, and it still does hold up today. But by today's standards, there are plenty of things that I think it would be criticized for had it been released now as it is. It's got an underdeveloped villain, a whiny main character, some cheesy dialogue, and more stuff like that. And those things were fine in the 70s. Nobody really minded back then. But nowadays, people do care about those things. And that's why if you look at Force Awakens as a new and improved New Hope, you can see that it updates all of those things with ease. We get a more developed villain in Kylo Ren. We get a strong female character, very indicative of 2015. And we have a lot more down-to-earth lines that don't take themselves too seriously. I'm not saying all this to tear down the original Star Wars. I love that film. But as stated, it's of its own time, not ours. Remaking A New Hope for a new generation is a good thing, and in many ways it's a compliment to the original. The story is good, some might say great, enough to last generations, even if the filmmaking and script itself can date. So that's my 2 cents about Star Wars The Force Awakens, and the concept of remakes in general. Not all remakes are good, especially the ones that just do exactly the same thing as the original. But just because a movie doesn't have a particularly original script or story, I think that doesn't mean it's bad. A remake that copies the story of a predecessor and still improves on its flaws should be commended, not criticized. Thanks for watching.